Greta, great to see you. Thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat. I want to kick off the interview by asking you about something that you said to me when we spoke a few weeks back. You said to me, "We're putting the middle finger up to AI." I mean, that seems that's quite a bold statement. I mean, why do you say that, and why does it matter to your business?
It's a great place to start, and I just want to preface it by saying not the whole of AI,
Right.
just the area that we're in, which is video. I probably said that because the startup that I started out with in 2021 was a blog marketplace. So
Right.
essentially what we were doing, I built something where people could upload their back catalog of blog content around fitness, health, food, drink, wine, whatever kind of evergreen stuff that didn't really have a date. And then the system would check that for plagiarism and kind of quality and stuff. And then we would sell that out to small businesses or businesses that needed blog content for their social media or their website or whatever. And that went really well up until 2023 when ChatGPT descended and basically it was redundant overnight. Um,
So I can see why you're a bit angry with AI. I mean, I get
I
that.
mean, I wasn't. I dug my heels in and I said, people want things that are created by humans, and it's more important if it's generated by experience and stuff. But actually, it's not necessarily for that kind of stuff. And I think one investor said to me, people want what's good enough, and ChatGPT is good enough, and it's only going to get better. And you're selling for $20 what ChatGPT can essentially do for free. So I wasn't angry at AI, but I thought, okay, how can I build something or pivot this company? I had 100,000 users. I was like, how can I pivot it to something that AI essentially can't touch? Um, Video was coming out on top in all the data research of marketing and advertising. I had noticed a decline in kind of effectiveness of influencer marketing or marketing that was too polished, videos that were too polished, they were too scripted, let's say. Um, and so I thought, I wonder if I could create something where people could just upload videos of themselves talking about brands or products or places or things that they genuinely use and they genuinely enjoy and sell them out to the actual brands that they mentioned.
So
Um,
let me clarify. So what you've built is something where, if I bought a product, I can talk about it on my phone, I can upload it to your site, and then the company that makes the product can buy that to use.
exactly.
Very good.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. That's a really clever idea. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And they can use that as an ad. So, what happened during COVID basically was people became much more comfortable in front of a screen.
Yeah.
Obviously, we were all in front of screens, and much more comfortable uploading videos of themselves, whether it was YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. TikTok kind of blew up, I think, in COVID. Um, and so people just actually naturally started talking about things that they were using and things that they were, whether it was their lawnmower or their shampoo or whatever. And brands started noticing that those videos were more effective than their commissioned videos that they were getting from agencies. So I think then now what's happened in the last 12 months, really, 12 to 18 months, is this AI slop that has kind of taken over the internet. And I think at the beginning, when this first came out, like companies like Sora, who were just valued billions, and they had Sora is a video generation kind of technology where you can put in, I'm sure you've seen loads of Sora videos. They had a contract with Disney for 1 billion. And everyone really thought, I mean, I went to conferences in advertising where people were like, we're never going to need to hire models again or influencers or write a script because this is just going to do it for us and it's going to be so effective. Um, and at the time, I did think, I don't know if that's really going to happen. I kind of thought, I wonder if there was a movie, let's say, and you said, okay, it's all generated by AI, but you're
Right.
never going to know the difference because it's just you can't tell the difference. Would you go and see that movie? And I think you probably would for the novelty factor, but there's something that humans don't like about when they know that it's not a human. There's something called uncanny valley, which is basically it was coined, I think, by a Japanese guy, but basically it's the unnerving feeling that we have when we see something that's human but not quite human. And it's a very primitive thing that obviously started like in a very natural way, like in the jungle, obviously, there's loads of creatures that kind of look like the animal but aren't the animal to try and draw in whatever, what is it, prey they have. And like that, humans, when they see like maybe a mannequin or like a doll or a clown or something that looks off, it's danger. So it kind of triggers something called uncanny valley where we just feel uneasy and dangerous. And that I think is the feeling that people have when they see AI generated humans. It's hard to pinpoint, it's hard to because you're like, God, or I can't tell the difference, but there is something. And it has to be something much deeper than I suppose the tech industry really would have liked to think that we have inside us. I mean, it's fascinating to think that we can now detect that, whereas like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to detect it. It's the exposure of it, and it's our brains evolving around the technology and proving that our brains are incredibly forward. But um, for me personally in the business, I was like, this is great, right? Because people are realizing we can't use this to sell product because the general public don't like it when big brands or any brands are using something. They think they're cutting corners. They think they're not paying individuals. They're not paying the models, the makeup artists. They're cutting out all these jobs. And that's the kind of logical thing. But I think it goes, bigger than that. It's like we don't like seeing things that aren't human. So I kind of Marker Video kind of came out in 2024 before this crashed, which was great. And now what we're doing is we're basically working with brands and they're basically putting our QR codes in their packaging, on
Right.
flyers, stickers, whatever. And here, I've got an example here actually. So this is in a pub and it just says like upload your video review. We want your experience in this
So,
pub.
so it's actually evolved into a sort of customer review business. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it's totally authentic. We don't give any scripts. We don't tell people what to
Yeah.
say. The only thing we say is you have to actually like the product or the place. You can't put something up and be like, this is crap. Um,
So what, let
because
me sorry, that's a very interesting point. Why not? I mean, because one of the reasons, my experience has been that one of the reasons people respond to, customer surveys and customer feedback kind of stuff is because they're not happy about something and they want the opportunity to say, I'm not happy because. Are you saying that people that those businesses don't want the negative feedback? I mean, is that what you're
Well, it's not necessarily feedback that they're using it for. They're using it for as part of their marketing. So they're
saying?
using these videos to put on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or whatever. And it could be, somebody going around a hotel being like, this is a great hotel. I love the pool. I love the cocktails or whatever. And the hotel will use that and target that out to that demographic.
Okay.
Now, not to say we don't take it doesn't have to be 100% positive. It can be like, I'm not that keen on the packaging, but I love the way it tastes or whatever.
Yeah.
That is more authentic. It just can't be a total slate because
So,
no one's going to use that as
yeah,
an
so
ad.
what you're saying is that it's using customer feedback, customer ideas, not to fix problems, but to promote the business, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a really interesting. And how have let me ask you about about that. How have brands responded to that? I mean, presumably people love the idea.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, like in 2024, it was kind of we started with the beauty industry because we thought that was kind of the
Yeah.
road of least resistance. This is happening. And it was really well received. Then we started looking at kind of food and drink, beverages. At the beginning, I think people, especially people who have worked with agencies and who kind of have an ownership over the brand, they're comfortable in a situation where they're like, okay, so we'll give them a script, we'll tell them to say this, they can't say this. And we're like, no, 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 you can't tell them what to say and you can't give them a script. Otherwise, it kind of negates the whole authentic side of it. And the whole point of this is people can sniff that out. So you kind of have to relinquish that control, let your customers say what they want to say, and appreciate that that's the
And,
authenticity of
and
it.
can I ask you about that authenticity piece? Um, how do you know that I mean, you use the words they can sniff out people that have been scripted. I mean, how do you know that? Is there evidence to support the fact that people are more skeptical about those
Oh
sorts of
yeah.
things?
Oh my God. So much evidence. So
Right.
much evidence. Like if a video says paid, like hashtag paid partnership, hashtag ad, it's something like 87% less likely to do a
Right.
conversion.
Okay.
Um, especially Gen Z, they just hate anything that they feel or they know has
Yeah.
been is contrived, or is polished, particularly with AI, but more so with kind of influencer content. Now, influencer content is brilliant and it works really well. And I'm definitely not saying that it's not effective, because it is. I mean, if you get David Beckham to say that he likes your lemonade, that lemonade is going to be huge.
Yeah.
Um, it's more so that industry itself got a bit corrupted because same thing happened. People started to do it naturally. People started to say, I love this, I love these vitamins, I love this, whatever. And then they'd be contacted by a company and say, okay, now we're going to send you something for free. We're going to pay you 500 quid and you have to say this whether you like it or not. And so that's how it got corrupted, because people were like, I don't think you like that. Or I know you didn't buy that, you got that for free. And it just negates the authentic side of content. With us, we don't give any products for free. We don't tell them what to say. So what we can guarantee is that person has stayed in that hotel, used that shampoo, whatever. We've never told anyone what to buy, and all we're targeting really is the customers who are already using that product. So it's I wouldn't call it a loophole. It's more a kind of it's a I suppose, what would you say? It's just a different way to look at it. It's a different way to
I mean,
uh,
I suppose in the technical sense, it's what you would describe as social proof, isn't it?
right, exactly. It's social proof. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so what you've got is an approach, some technology that enables people to talk really authentically about products, and
Mhm.
that has a really positive effect on potential buyers. So I get that. I mean, that's a very clever way of doing that, actually. So I can see why that's valuable. How do you? I mean, what is it you want to achieve with the business? I mean, you've got this great process, you've got this great tech. What is it you want to achieve with the business? I mean, where would you say you want to be, let's say 5 years' time? I mean, notwithstanding the fact that the technology could change everything in the next,
No,
but where
right.
do you want to be with the business? What's your idea of success if 3 or 4 years down the track?
So it's a great question. And sometimes you lose sight of that, obviously, as an owner of a business, because you're in the weeds of it every day. But ultimately, I try and keep that goal in mind, which is I want every product that you see, or every hotel you go to, or restaurant you go to have a marker video logo somewhere that you
Okay,
can
so
say, oh,
world domination.
exactly. It's just a small ask. But it's a kind of stamp of authenticity that you can say, oh, great, this company's using marker. That means they're not using AI and they're not using influencers, and they're using genuine. So that's good. We should, like, if you walk into a restaurant, you're like, oh, great, let's film it. And if we like it, we'll upload it to
Yeah,
marker. We might make it
yeah.
money, because I haven't mentioned, but you do get money if the company actually purchases your video. And I want that to be the stamp of authenticity, of guaranteed human, guaranteed not AI slop, and for it to be a really recognizable symbol of, oh, okay, cool, these guys are using their customers instead of influencers and AI slop. So it's just, yeah, world domination, I suppose,
But
being on
what's interesting about it is that you want to achieve world domination by saying you can trust us. So what
exactly.
you're really saying is the power of this proposition is that it's about human to human trust. Is that fair?
That is exactly it. We are a trust platform, I guess. I mean, the guaranteed human thing is huge, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't that big of a deal in 2024.
Is
Now
now.
it's a much bigger deal. And it's really important that we are true to that, right? Because now what can happen is someone can upload a video. So Paul, you could upload a video of yourself talking about, your favorite toothpaste. And then you can put that into a system that does 50 videos of you that are you. It's a deep fake, and you're talking about 50 different products. that's what we need to avoid. That's what we need to make sure that the tech is on top of that. It will always come down to a human. Like we reject about 60% of what comes in. The last hurdle of quality control will always be a human. Um, because there are some things that the tech can't pick up even now. It will get more sophisticated, but yeah, like it has to be guaranteed human. We know this person. I mean, when you upload a video, we perform verification that you are a human, KYC, your bank details, all sorts of processes you have to go to make sure that you're an individual. It's not just a video of a random person. We need to know that you're real. So yeah, it's about trust.
Okay. Let me ask you about how you're going to, I mean, if your goal is world domination, let's talk a little bit how you're going to get there, right? So let's start with you as the CEO. I mean, how do you feel about being the CEO of a company that is right at the cutting edge of what's happening in the world of AI? Okay, you're bit of the world of AI, but it's right at the cutting edge, this issue about trust, isn't it? What's your thoughts about being the CEO of a company, trying to build a company in that environment?
Oh my God. I mean, I don't really think about that. I suppose I
Presumably you
don't
feel good about it though, do you? Or do you not feel good about it? I mean,
know.
somebody said to me the other day they really didn't want to be the CEO. I mean, you don't come across, you've never said that to me.
No, I feel really good about being on kind of the right side of history, I guess. So like building
Yeah.
something that is rewarding humans and allowing humans to make money from home. And whether that's like, a mom at home that is on maternity leave, she could still
Yeah.
make a bit of cash through Marker because she's talking about things she likes. And I'm glad that I have created something that's giving people money instead of, you know, taking jobs away from people. Because there's a lot of AI companies now, or a lot of companies that are like, this is going to save you so much money. You can fire all these people, you can whatever. That's tough, and I know that that's evolution of tech, and I know that we have to accept that. But I'm glad that I've created something, yeah, that gives back to, or that gives to
Yeah.
people instead of takes from people. The CEO thing. Look, I don't know. I mean, obviously I presume every CEO has imposter syndrome where they're just like, I'm nothing special. I've just created a little
Yeah.
idea that hopefully will change the world. But I definitely don't get overwhelmed by that because I work from home. I'm here in an attic. It's not like it was 10, 20 years ago where you're in a huge office and you're walking around and you're giving out to people and stuff. It's just, you just put the head down and thanks to AI, so I'm not putting the finger up to all AI. Thanks to AI, there's so many things that we can do now just from home and be more efficient. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I don't think about being the CEO of
I
anything.
mean, most of the CEOs I talk to would say that you're building a business is a bit of a roller coaster. But there are good days, there are bad days, everything in between. I mean, what is it about this particular? I mean, you've sort of touched on part of it by what you were saying about giving back, I think, but what is it about this particular business that kind of, if you like, it gets you to jump out of bed in the morning with a bit of enthusiasm to ride the kind of roller coaster for the day? I mean, what is it that motivates you to do? Because it's a tough gig building a business, in my view.
You know what, Paul? Like everything's a tough gig. Like there is no easy gig in life, I don't think. And, whether that's starting a podcast or, being a parent or working in a bank or working in a shop or working on a farm, like I don't think mine is any tougher or easier than anyone else's because well, I mean, it's easier because it's something I chose. So many people don't get that privilege to choose something, I remind myself that every day. There's so many people that just would love the opportunity to start their own company and they've
And why did
loads.
you, I mean, why did you choose to do that? I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, I can see why it makes you feel more motivated because it's a very active choice, but why did you choose to do that?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, nobody would give me a job. I,
You and me
I,
both.
I didn't have any qualifications. I dropped out of college. I, I kind of throughout my 20s I just was kind of waitressing and bartending and stuff, and then I had two friends that had made a bit of money and they wanted to start an online magazine for college students, and I said, well, I'll help out with that. But I was on like social welfare. I mean, I was, wasn't making any money or anything. And then that kind of kicked off. That like started to do quite well. And we ended up getting like 4 million users a month and started working with big brands and stuff. And I was only like 24. I knew nothing about anything. But it was a real kind of MBA by doing.
Mm.
And so they sold those two. I created two magazines, online magazines, and I just learned a lot about the psychology of kind of content marketing. So basically, like, Red Bull will come to us and say, oh, we've got a new tropical flavor. How are we going to give this to the college students? How are you going to get this in front of the college students? And I'd say, okay, well, we'll put Red Bull Tropical in five of our best performing articles. We'll weave it in somehow, like, 10 things you have to have in your fridge as a student, and that'll be number one or whatever. And we will guarantee you that we're going to get, 500,000 views on that of people between 18 and 24. And they'd be like, if you can do that, that's great. And we used to do that. And I thought, oh, God, this is such a clever way to advertise to people because it's not in your face, it's not something you have to click out of. It's through an article that's giving some value to them. And I mean, when I think about marker video now and what I learned back then with those magazines, it's really not very far apart. It's
Mm.
okay, how can I create something that's giving the audience value instead of trying to trick them into buying something? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, those two magazines sold, and I tried to get a job after that because I mean, at that stage I was managing like 50 people. And so I was like, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to own a company anymore. I don't want to be a CEO. I just want to be like a cog or like a small person in a big company and have no responsibility and walk out at 5 p.m. and all that kind of stuff. And I interviewed for so many companies, and I nobody would hire me. I don't know why. I don't know whether it was because I had come from this position of authority maybe, and they were like, oh no, she's I don't know. I actually don't know why. I mean, so I started temping to make some money, well, to do something basically. So I temped in like 13 different offices as like reception, or just like data inputting or whatever. I loved it. It was so good. It was exactly what I needed. It was like zero responsibility. When you're a temp, people just think you're invisible. So they just, they're like, do you know how to open an email? Do we need to show you that? And you're like, I think I can figure it out. So it
Yeah.
was just a great. And then during that time, while I was temping, I just kind of had this idea for the blog marketplace. And I filled out a application for New Frontiers in Ireland, which is like the Irish government accelerator program. And yeah, I filled out an application and I did an interview for that. And that's kind of like a business course that you do at night. And then if you get into phase two of it, which I did, they pay you like 2.5 grand a month for 6 months to start the company. And that's how I started it.
Well,
Like, but huge privilege in that I live in a country that was able to give me that money tax free and like equity free. And then I got a grant from the government of 10 grand to try and start building it and stuff like that. And my whole journey has been, the Irish government have helped me, Enterprise Ireland, so much. So there is a huge amount of privilege there, and I'm very aware of that. And there's a lot of people that wouldn't have those resources to be able to start a company. So yeah, I mean, I think my journey is not easier or harder than anyone else's.
I mean, it's still a really, at its heart, it's still a really neat idea, I think. I mean, I take your point about having a bit of help to get you to market, but it seems to me you've still got a great idea. Let me ask you about the journey that you just sort of outlined broadly what it is. I mean, have there been any particular surprises along the way when you've thought, oh, I really didn't think things were going to turn out like that? Have you had any of those sorts of surprises on the journey?
God, every day there's a surprise. I think you surprise yourself at how you manage situations. And I think the founder or the CEO of a company, of any company, basically their job is just putting out fires and problem solving and making sure that everybody's happy on the team, your customers, whatever, your investors. It's just like a relationship management also goal and a kind of crisis management role. Um, so yeah, I get surprised by people. I've been let down. I definitely trust too quickly. And I have been absolutely burned. Two
Mm.
two people in particular come to mind where they kind of approached me. They said, "Look, I can sell this where I can do this, I can get customers, I can get clients, I can get investors, I can get, and I really drank the Kool-Aid. I was like, oh my God, and ended up handing over a lot of money and seeing zero results and realizing I'd basically been conned. And then it happened again with someone else and same thing. And it's a really hard pill to swallow when you're like, your judgment was not good.
Mm.
Um, and I have a great solicitor, a really good lawyer, and he's so kind. And both of those instances, he was like, "This happens. Don't beat yourself up."
Mm.
These people were very, very charming, very convincing. Um, and I think, unfortunately, I've met a lot of very successful people that are a lot older than me and always felt like, oh God, there's a bit of a hardness there. Or they'd be like, well,
Mm.
don't take that crap and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, God, I never want to be like that. I want to be someone who's kind and soft and never, but actually, I totally get it. You have to learn to like
Toughen up,
build
don't you?
and just like be discerning and don't trust people straight away. Or as one of my mentors says, trust but verify. Like you can
Yeah.
trust people, but you have
Yeah.
to have
I mean,
proof
that
and you
was
have
Margaret Thatcher's big thing, wasn't it? With the nuclear, the stuff, the nuclear disarmament thing, trust but verify. I mean, it's a very good,
right.
well-made point, I think. I mean, you've taught that the trust thing is clearly really important in terms of what you're doing. Let me ask you about other things I mean, how have your values, I mean, we've talked about trust, which is obviously important to you. How have your values shaped the way you've built the business? I mean, are there other things that have I mean, the trusting obviously is critical, but are there other values that have influenced the way you've built the company?
Absolutely. As a kind of general rule, I would never hire anyone that I wouldn't bring for dinner with my family. Um, because that kind of says so much about how you feel about somebody, and that's all about trust. Um, and I have been, again, I have hired people that were wrong that I thought, well, actually, they're just really smart, and it doesn't really matter that we don't get on that well. They're super good at their job, whatever. It never works. Um, you have to like the people. Well, sorry, I have to like the people I work with, on a personal level, and I have to hear about the way they talk about their family, the way they talk about their friends, and see what their values are, and do they line up with mine? Because at the end of the day, like these people you're spending more time with than your family and your friends. And if you don't like them, what's the point? I mean, it's the whole point of life, I think, is enjoying the journey because none of us know what's going to happen. And none of us know if it's going to be a success or whatever, what's coming down the line. So like you might as well surround yourself with people that you enjoy and that you would like to go for lunch with or have a pint with or whatever. I mean, they don't have to be your best friends, but they just have to be people. So I think that's definitely and going back to what I was saying about being burned by people, from now on, I'm just going to be like, I'm just not going to work with anybody that I don't think is a genuinely good person, no matter how successful they
I
are.
mean, I think surrounding yourself with good people is always good advice. You know, I mean, why would you want to surround yourself with awful people? You mean you
I
wouldn't?
know,
Because,
but like
yeah,
some people are in jobs and they absolutely hate their boss or they
yeah.
hate the people, whatever. And it's like, why are you still there? And they're like, oh, because the money is so good or I'm getting a big bonus or whatever. And it's like, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It's every single day you hate it. The money, who cares about money? Oh, obviously, everybody cares about money,
Well,
but
yeah, a lot of people do care about money. I mean,
yeah, well, we
yeah.
all have to care about money.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you about another thing that I think is interesting about building businesses is, and I suffer from this. I mean, what I call shiny object thing. You know, there's all these other distractions going on. And I'm easily distracted by things. That's always been something. You know, oh, that looks interesting. I'll go and do that, and then realize I've wasted 6 months on something ridiculous. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, what is your take on staying focused, if you like, cutting through all the noise so that
Mhm.
you get the right stuff done? I mean, what's your take on, first of all, how do you work out what the right stuff is? And secondly, how do you keep all the other noise at bay? I mean, have you got thoughts about that? What's been your experience of those sorts of things?
I think that I think instinct is like a muscle. I think like the more you use it, the stronger it gets. And the more you listen to it, the stronger it gets. Anytime I've gone against my instincts, it hasn't worked out. But like I've made loads of mistakes where I thought this is great, this is going to work, and it hasn't. Um, Now, having said that, I can say I do think my instincts are good, and most of the time when I have it, like for example, with the pivot when we went from blog to video,
Mm.
um, that was an instinct that my investors were just so happy and impressed with, basically, because they were like, you had money in the bank, you had customers, um, and you still seem to see what was coming down the line, and you didn't have this position bias for too long, where you were like, well, I'm not letting go of this. This is my baby. This is what I've built. I've spent years building it. I'm not going to let AI come along. You were able to see the writing was on the wall. You'd money in the bank, so you could have like run it into the ground, but you didn't. You brought down the team to two people so that your burn was really low. I stopped working in an office. I stopped paying rent anywhere. I like basically brought down the costs to nothing. And I got another grant. And then I designed marker video. And that I think is something that I'm very proud of. I've made loads of mistakes and continue to make mistakes every single day, but definitely that was something that I felt, yeah, it was an instinct.
Mm.
Um,
So what you're saying is, what you're saying is trust your instincts.
Trust your instincts
Let's
because
we can come back to the mistakes in a minute, right? Because I want to ask you about them. But before we get onto that, one of the other interesting things about building a global business in this is that, doing business in Dublin, very different from doing business in Singapore or in Berlin or LA or New York. I mean, we were just talking about New York earlier on. I mean, you know, so it's a great opportunity with digital technology to be able to say, I can work with clients all over the world, which is
Mhm,
what you can do. That also means you're exposed to global competition. So
mhm.
and that's could be a lot of other businesses around. So there's global competition if you're in a global market. But also there are cultural differences. Customers, buyers, clients have different expectations. People in India want different things from people in Singapore, for example. What's your take on the kind of A, the global competition piece, and B, the kind of cultural nuances? I mean, let's talk about the competition first. I mean, how do you see your business in what is a global marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, I incorporated this business. It's an Irish company, but I also incorporated it in Delaware because unfortunately, like as much as I love Ireland and as I have touched on, has given me so much opportunity. It's a small market, and if you want a global business, you have to start where the big guys are really. Um, there's a total cultural difference. Like I completely know what you're saying. When we talk to customers here, give you an example. We have a brand here that we're working with, and the same brand came to us in the States. Two different offices, two different managers, whatever. But we worked with this brand over here, and just the vision for them was just so much smaller, or the what they were willing to spend. Now they had smaller budgets, they weren't willing to take that many risks. I flew over to New York to meet the US team, and it was just night and day. They were like, yeah, throw money at it. We've got big budgets. We'll take a risk. And I think that's across the board, especially for startups. Investors over there will take more risks. They're just willing to do it. I think it's one of those things about the US that they're like, that's where dreams are made, because people are
Part
just
of their
like, yeah,
culture, isn't it? It's part of the way they
let's
do
go
it.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas over here in Ireland in particular, much more risk adverse. And I mean, that's through years of history, I'm sure, and we could talk about it forever, but like hugely risk adverse. So, and like again, in the States, when you're in sales, they kind of expect you to inflate it, and they expect you to be, we're going to be world domination, we're going to do this and this and this for you. Whereas in Ireland and England, they're way more discerning, and they'll challenge you more. And I think that's right in a way as well. I don't think, either way is right or wrong. Obviously, it's easier in the States because again, they're willing to kind of to spend the money and take the risk. Um, with competition, I try not to. worry about that too much because there's so many things I can't control, most things. Um, but what I can control is this business, and there's always going to be noise around. And like, there's so many people that say, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about adding this feature? And when I'm raising money, I speak to a lot of investors, and they're like, "And what about this? You should do it this way, maybe," and stuff. You have to be very careful not to take everybody's suggestions and go, yeah, let's build something that has every single bell and whistle that every single person suggested. Um, and there's a way to do that. You go, that's a really good idea. Yeah, let me think about that. And then you go back and you do what you were going to do in the first place. And that just means that if you make the wrong decision, it was your fault. If you make the right decision, it was your fault too, or it was your initiative. So yeah, competition, it's really important to look at competition. It's really important to see what other people in the industry are doing because you have to be constantly learning. But at the same time, if you're strong enough on your own idea, which I am, um, I don't let any of that kind of infiltrate my
Well, you're
mind
saying
because
don't be distracted by what other people are doing, which seems to me to be
oh,
pretty sensible.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask this. Let's turn to the things that you've learned from your experience then. I mean, you talked a lot about making mistakes. I mean, what would you say is the biggest mistake you've made and what did you learn from it?
I'm probably a bit too hard on myself about the mistakes. And I know my partner, Alison, if she listens to this, she'll be like, Greta, you don't make that many mistakes. I think probably the biggest mistake I can think of is engaging with that um person that kind of promised me that he was going to get me all these clients, and he turned out to be essentially a con artist. The money was one thing. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was significant for a startup. That money was invested by investors. So I felt like I let them down. I felt like, again, I let Alison down, who's my business partner. Um, I felt like was I capable of running a business if I couldn't see that this guy was taking me for a ride or whatever. So yeah, but as I touched on earlier, huge learnings. And I presume, I mean, you've talked to a lot of business people. I presume you can't swing a cat without finding a business person that's like, I've been screwed over, I've been taken for a ride, I've lost money. I mean, one of my investors is massively successful and has made millions upon millions. And, I just looked at him like he was someone who never made mistakes. Clearly, he's so smart and he's so successful. And he said to me one day, "Oh, I have lost more money than I have made."
Mm.
And
A lot of
that's,
entrepreneurs would say that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's great to hear that. And sorry, it's not great to hear that someone lost loads of money, but it's just like, okay, so like we're all kind
I
of
mean,
figuring
uh,
this out.
one of the reasons I like entrepreneurs, or I like working with them, like talking funny about it, is that they're much more open about making mistakes. I mean, if you talk to government departments, I mean, they would never, politicians, they never admit they've made a mistake. I mean, entrepreneurs are much more open about the fact they screw things up because if you're not open about it, you can't then get it fixed, and if you don't get it fixed, you go out of business. So, I think entrepreneurs are actually one of the things about the private sector about entrepreneurial businesses, particularly the small businesses that are having a global impact. They're very quick to identify when things aren't working. They're very quick to figure out a solution to that. And I think that's one of the strengths, actually. I think that's what makes entrepreneurs really special, is that ability to bounce back, to recover from something going horribly wrong. And
Yeah.
it happens to everyone, doesn't it? It happens to everyone.
It's kind of the mentality of, okay, but what can we do about it?
Yeah.
Like it's only a
Yeah.
problem if there's a solution. So let's figure it out
Yeah.
quickly, kind of thing. Instead of dwelling on it.
Let me
Which
ask you
can
about, can I ask you about the flip side? I mean, what is it that you enjoy most about building the business? I mean, you've talked about the mistakes that you've made. What about the other side to it? I mean, what are the things that you really enjoy about what you do?
I mean, I love it all. I love seeing every day seeing people engage with it, on board, upload videos. I love I suppose I love that I've created something that works, that people want to, like when we got our first customer in, I was like, oh my God, like, we've built something that
It's
somebody's
a
willing
buzz, isn't it? It's a
to
real
hand
buzz.
over. money to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether that was like 100 quid or 1,000, it was like somebody's actually willing to hand over to money to something that we built that didn't exist before we did it. Because nothing we this is not this is a brand new idea. Nobody's done this before. So that's pretty cool. But that wears off quickly. You have to be like, okay, well, we have to figure out how to get it better. I don't know. I just love the everyday, I suppose. And
Well,
it's
let
funny,
me
like
let me ask you the same question in a different way. What is it that makes you most proud about your business?
probably that's a good question. I think we just signed a massive contract with a big company in the States. And like to say that, you know, I had so much doubt maybe that I wasn't able to do this because I didn't, as I said, I didn't have the qualifications. I've nothing in business. Um, and I'm kind of proud of myself. A lot of people have said to me, you really have stuck at this. Like, I mean, this has been going on for years. Like, I went over to my parents the other day and they have like a housekeeper and she was there and she said, "Oh, Greta, I heard you signed a big contract." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, finally." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." Like, it's taken a while. Um, so I'm probably proud of the resilience of being like, just keep going, get back up. We can do this. We'll get another grant, we'll keep the lights on however we can keep the lights on. I think that's probably, and so many founders say that. They're like, it's only success because you just keep trying.
I mean, I
And a
think
lot
there was
a lot of people give up too soon because they're like, this is
yeah,
too hard.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
there was a famous US president who said perseverance is everything. I mean, I forget the exact quote, but I mean, that's what you're describing, isn't it? Is that sticking at it, come what may.
you're sticking at it. Kind of there's no option. And I've seen so many startups fail is the wrong word, but like the reason that startups fail is because they run out of money, basically. That is the only reason that startups fail. So I suppose I'm proud that I've kept the company alive and as I say, the lights on. And I've been, like shot down by so many investors, by so many customers, whatever. And now all of a sudden it's like as whatever was it Lionel Messi that said an overnight success that took 14 years.
Yeah.
Um, that's what it feels like. It feels like, oh wow, we just got now we're hugely profitable, and people are like, oh wow, that was quick, and it's like, no, it wasn't. So yeah, it's probably the resilience sticking at it, but then I also think there's a level of kind of naivety about that, and a bit of kind of we'll just keep going. Whereas other people be like, jeepers, like she's delusional if she thinks that this is going to work because she's been banging on doors for so long. Whereas now it's like, huh, I was right. It is going to
Yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you talked about being sort of knocked down a second. I mean, I think it was Muhammad Ali or somebody said, it's not getting knocked down that's the failure; it's staying down. I mean,
Right.
have you ever been, if you like, knocked over and thought, I don't know whether I can get up? Have you ever had something that bad?
Yeah, definitely. I when the blog marketplace, which had investors and still hasn't because it's the same company, when that was kind of not it just wasn't we weren't getting the revenue we needed. I couldn't raise any more money. AI had come along. It was just blowing it out of the water and it was just such a big headwind. And one day I was in a shared office, like a workspace, and I had a meeting with one of my investors, and usually I'm very positive and I'm like everything's gonna be okay. And I was like that on the call, but he just was like, "You need to figure this out because this is going nowhere. And what are you going to do? And this is your job. And a lot of money has gone into this, and blah blah blah." And I remember closing the laptop that day and being like, "I don't know if I can do this." And I could not see another move. I couldn't see the next step forward. I actually was like, and physically, my chest was like, it felt like someone was sitting on it. I was like, I couldn't properly get a deep breath. Like it was essentially a panic attack. Um, and it was very silent, like it was happening inside. So it wasn't like, But I ended up like going to my GP and being like, I don't know. And she was like, this is, there's so much pressure on you at the moment. And I was like, but what do I do? I basically I remember so well, I was sitting in my office chair and I was like, what am I going to do? And I thought, okay, forget about all the problems, forget about the money, forget about, AI, forget about everything that's going wrong, and try and just think about like three or four things that you actually have. And I was like, I have this much money in the bank. I have 100,000 users um, that are engaged. And I have, all this knowledge inside me about content marketing or whatever. And I was like, what can I do with those three things? Um, and that's when I started mapping out marker video. But I definitely,
Right.
it was probably about 2 weeks there where it was almost like total paralysis, like paralysis of thought, paralysis of body. I was like, I can't do this. And unfortunately in life, the world keeps turning and you have to do it.
Yeah.
And there's so many points, I think, in all of our lives where you think, I can't keep going. Um, and you do.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point you've made. I mean, somebody said to me the other day that one of the big questions for entrepreneurs is knowing what to do when you don't know what to do, which is what you've just described. But what's interesting is the way you've answered that, because what you've said is, I didn't know what to do. So what I did was I focused on what I've got and thought, what can I do with what I've got? Which actually I think is, I mean, I've been through something similar, and I think that's actually a really powerful process. And that's the thing that enables you to get up off the floor, if you like. So it's really interesting you describe that. And then the other thing I think is interesting about that is that there's always this assumption that if it goes wrong, it will only be bad. Well, sometimes when things go wrong, actually the outcomes are better, aren't they? I mean, you've moved into a place now where actually your business is going to be significantly more successful than that one could have been, I think. Is
That
that
was
fair?
that was the best thing that ever happened. That could have happened was
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Uh, that's just true for any area of like of your life, I think. A lot of mental health coaches would say that if you're like your relationship or maybe there's a death in the family or whatever it is, it's like try and focus on what you have instead of what you've lost or what you
Yeah.
don't have.
Yeah.
Uh, Really hard thing to do, but
Yeah. But
again,
also, it's when life doesn't go to plan, doesn't mean it's going to be bad. I mean, life may not go to plan, and the outcome may be good. I mean, that's certainly been my experience. So, let
well,
me ask you about a couple of other things before we wind this up. Um, if you looking back, right, if you were to start again from scratch, what would you do differently, knowing what you know now?
oh God. Do you know what? Like I was about to say there, what insufferable people we would be if we hadn't made mistakes and things had gone totally right every
Mm.
single way. You would have zero character. You'd have no compassion. You'd have no empathy. And you'd just be like a pretty crap human, I think. So I know it's a real cliche, but like, I don't know if I would have done anything differently because everything I've learned has brought me here. Um, and I'm in a really good place now with the business, with the team, with everything. So like if I had done things differently, I wouldn't be here. Um, so yeah, I hate to say that, and I hate when people say that, but that's
Well,
what I
okay, let me ask you the question in another way then.
okay.
What one piece of advice would you give to a rookie CEO starting out you know, on a journey perhaps a bit like yours? I mean, what would your advice be?
Yeah, well, probably it would be focus on what's going well instead of what's not going well. Forget about the things that are going wrong because everything's like, of course, things are always going to be going wrong, and try and stay focused on what's going right and do more of that.
Mm.
Um, that's really it. And don't get distracted. Just keep going. Probably.
Good advice, I think. Um, and one final question, really. What is it? I mean, I know you're on the brink of doing some quite big things just at the moment. I mean, what is it that excites you about the next chapter of the business? I mean, we've talked a lot about, what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to do that and what you've learned from the experience. I mean, tell me about what's next.
Like, it's funny you say that because I don't, I don't, the excitement thing kind of doesn't happen as much as maybe it would have a few years ago because you kind of learn how to manage that like feeling because you're like, there's no point getting too excited. This just means we have to move this way or whatever. Um, and I'm in a place now where 5 years ago or even 2 years ago, it would have been like, oh my God, imagine we got there. That would be success. That would be amazing. So the goalposts are just constantly moving.
Mm.
Um, what excites me about the future? I really don't know because everything now is great. I don't want to jinx anything. Um, I guess like I don't know. Honestly, Paul, I don't know.
Okay,
That's
well,
terrible that I don't have anything to say about the future. I'm just, yeah, I'm very happy in the present. So I'm trying not to.
let me ask you the same. Let me ask the same question in a different way. Then, what would you like your legacy to be?
My legacy, I think the people that are most important for my legacy are probably my three nieces. And I want them to be able to go into school or to their friends or college or whatever and say their auntie was Greta Dunne. And she kind of changed the way advertising was done. She changed the way marketing was looked at. She brought authenticity into a world where everybody was trying to stamp that out. She stuck to her guns and celebrated the humans instead of the machines. Um, so that's probably not too much of a legacy, but maybe something
Well,
around, yeah.
pretty impressive, actually, listening to you say that. I mean, what a great legacy to leave if you can achieve that. I mean, that's impressive stuff. So, Greta, thank you for taking a bit of time to come and have a chat. I mean, it's been a fascinating conversation. I've always found it interesting when we've spoken. I mean, I really appreciate you making some time to come and talk to us about what you're doing, and good luck going forward, and good luck achieving that legacy, because that, if you can achieve that, you'll have left something really useful.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.